All right, we're live. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you're joining us live or if you're tuning in for the replay, really, really excited that you're here. And I'm super excited to introduce you all to Tiffany, who is a fellow group member and she's a Pinterest strategist. And I'm really excited because Tiffany is going to share some of her wisdom, knowledge, best tips all about Pinterest. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for agreeing to chat with us today. I want to just jump right in and say, ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and your business.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So my husband and I started Freedom Connect Services a couple of months ago. We actually are doing kind of a total VA, virtual assistant group thing. And we've been doing virtual assistant stuff for a very long time, but we didn't actually know what it was called. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, we take care of email stuff, like all kinds of different virtual assistant things. And I focus on Pinterest because I just love it so much. So that is where my passion is. And I'm excited to be here to share some of that with you guys.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to learn from you because, as I've been telling you, Pinterest is something like I know about ish, but I've kind of been neglecting it. And I think there's a lot a lot of maybe misconceptions out there and just a lot of like bad information. So I'm so excited
Yeah.
you're going to be here and clear all of that up. So, but my first question is, and I was saying this to you earlier as well, there's so many platforms out there. And when you're running a business or a monetized blog, there's so much to do. Like the list of things is never ending sometimes. And I think it can sometimes be really overwhelming to want to take on something new or add some other kind of platform to your kind of focus. So with all of that in mind, given all these things,
Right.
why do you think Pinterest should be one of the things we do have on our focus list? What's great about Pinterest?
Well, it's a great platform because there are so many users on it. A lot of businesses and blogs are kind of overlooking Pinterest right now, or they don't look at it as a marketing platform. Some people don't see it as the search engine platform that it is, and they just kind of write it off as like another social media thing. And so that just leaves a whole wide open field for businesses and bloggers to utilize. And with so many people going on Pinterest, I'm sure a ton of you that are watching, and I'm sure Kirsten, you as well, you use it personally, right? Because Pinterest is such a great place to go on there. And what's great about Pinterest is that people don't go on there looking for let's say Nike shoes, right? They're not going to just type in that. They're just going to look for shoes, or a specific type of shoes, high heeled shoes, or, tennis shoes, or, trainers, right? So they are open and not looking for brand specific information. And even if they have a favorite blogger or something that they go to typically, and they go to their website to read their blog posts about a specific topic, like when you go on Pinterest, you're not typically going to just go to that one person's page.
Yeah,
You're
that's a good
going
point.
to,
I've never searched for a person on Pinterest.
right. And so it's great because they are going to be introduced to you and find you as a new source of information. And so that's what people use Pinterest for. And so it's perfect for getting new people into your audience and know about you. So it's really great.
Amazing. And I mean, that's what we want as business owners and bloggers. We want people to
Definitely.
find us because it
Mm-hmm.
is getting more and more difficult to kind of break through the noise and things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. You
Yeah.
mentioned about Pinterest kind of not being like other social media platforms. What makes it different?
Yeah. Well, like Twitter and Facebook are like the biggest ones right now. And of course there's Instagram and TikTok and all of that. But for Facebook and Instagram, like the life of a tweet or a post on Instagram or Facebook is so much shorter Like you have just a really, really small window of time that when you post something, your followers are going to see it. So remember back in science class, they taught us like the half-life of this element or something.
Yeah.
So like they
Going
talk
back
about
a while, but yeah.
yeah. So the way they measure like posts and tweets and stuff, they measure in the half-life. So that's the time where you earn 50% of all of your clicks or views is called the half-life. So the half-life of a tweet is like 24 minutes.
Wow.
Like that's crazy. The half-life of a Facebook post is 90 minutes max. So, I mean, you have the other half of its life where people are going to see you. They're going to go to your page and they'll see you. Maybe they'll scroll down and look at all of your past ones, but it's not as easy to be found and that post be seen once you post it on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. They just kind of die after a while. You don't get much interaction on those. But for a pin, the half-life is 3.5 months.
Wow.
That's huge.
We've gone from 24 minutes for a tweet to 3 months for Pinterest. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And I think that statistic is actually wrong because I have been seeing so much right now, especially with the new algorithm changes and things that Pinterest is putting into place, that people are getting a lot of traction like a year or 2 years after their pin was first posted, which is amazing. So if you post something like right now for Christmas, like your Christmas post, and you make pins for your Christmas post, they're going to be indexed and really, really gaining traction by Christmas time. So when people are searching for those topics, like you're going to find that information that you're looking for because the pins on Pinterest practically live forever.
Wow.
It really is. It's really powerful.
That is really exciting because I think that's the thing as well. Like sometimes with some of these other platforms like Twitter or Facebook, you kind of like post something and it sort of like goes out there in the ether, and it can feel like really disheartening when like no one's interacting, no one's engaging, and you just kind of feel like you're just sending this out into nowhere. And like, I guess I wonder with Pinterest because Pinterest doesn't have the same type of, or at least from what I've seen, it doesn't really have the same type of like, people aren't on there to have chats with or conversations like they would be on, say, Instagram or even sometimes on Facebook, depending, what page or what group you're on. But like, I don't know. I just feel like with Pinterest, like, so you put your pin out there and you're not maybe going to immediately get any kind of like, you'll see impressions or all those fancy stats, but you won't necessarily get the engagement. But what you're saying is that in any case, people are still going to be finding your pin, and there's that chance. And that, I mean, I guess the reason that we love Pinterest, or why we should love Pinterest, is it's driving traffic, I think. Am I right? So, so what you're saying is like, it's not about getting comments and likes and things in the first half an hour. It's about it's about the fact that people can find your content and then like be sent over to your website, and then hopefully take the next step there. That is really cool.
Yeah. So like with Facebook and Instagram, like you said, your goal is to get comments and likes and things like that, but you don't really expect clicks back to your website every time you put something out on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Like if you have a really great post and you put a link in there and you kind of like do really good preparation for it, you might get clicks back to your website. Or if you do a paid ad, especially on Facebook, like those are really good for getting clicks to your website. But with Pinterest, that's exactly what you expect every time you put out a pin. It will take a long time. So it's kind of like send it out there and forget about it. And then you'll see traffic coming back from it, months down the road. Like the shortest amount of time that you should be looking forward to seeing growth is like 3 months. Like that's the minimum. You can gain a lot of traction before that, but the best growth is after 3 months. So just don't even expect anything until then.
And that's really good to know because, like, yeah, we want to manage some expectations. So, like, when it comes to Pinterest, I think, like I was saying earlier, there's probably a lot of misinformation out there, some misconceptions, some like just bad practices, and so on. So, in your experience, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes business owners and bloggers might be making if they're already on Pinterest? So we're assuming people, I mean, I guess you might say the biggest mistake is not being on Pinterest, but like if you're on it already, what are some mistakes that we should be looking out for and like not doing?
Well, you definitely don't want to treat Pinterest like your other social media stuff, your other social media platforms. You don't want to just take a post that you made for Facebook and pop it into Pinterest. You don't want to take a post that you made for Instagram and just pop it into Pinterest. So you want to make sure that you are thinking about how the typical user uses Pinterest. Because if you're not thinking about the regular user, it's not going to go over well, because people go on Pinterest for a different reason than they go on Facebook. So on Facebook, you're asking questions, you're trying to get them to comment and get, interaction. Same thing with Instagram. And if you're trying to do that same thing with Pinterest, it's not going to work. And like the pin sizes are different than regular pictures. So you can't treat it like the same thing, because they're completely different. Now, reposting some of like your Instagram stories or your reels and things like that onto Pinterest is really good right now. But just like a regular pin, a regular Instagram post won't necessarily do as well. But you can throw those in the mix sometimes, but don't just, you have to do specific things for Pinterest to love you too.
Yeah.
So also with Pinterest, you have to make sure that you are using keywords. Keywords are huge on Pinterest because, like I said, it's not just a social media platform. Everyone that follows you isn't just going to see your post, because they're not going to go to your page. They're not just necessarily scrolling through their home feed where your pins would show up, but they're searching for something to help make their life better. So you have to use keywords to make sure that they can find your stuff when they're searching for it. And if they're searching for your stuff and they follow you, Pinterest is going to show it to them. So you have to make sure you do keywords.
And is that kind of like, do we tackle that in the same way as we do like keywords for SEO and for things on our blogs and websites?
It's very similar in that you do need to do keyword research. You need to find out like how people are viewing your products or services, because you may think that people are classifying it like this because this is how you see it, but like they may be way over here thinking about it from a completely different direction. And you need to make sure that your keywords line up, and you can use a variety of keywords in multiple different places so that you can hit all those different audiences. But I actually have a keyword research guide that shows you how to complete keyword research. And I'm actually going to leave the link to like an overview page of what we're talking about. And it will have a link to that guide in there. So if you're interested and want to do keyword research and use those throughout your profile, you definitely can get help with that.
Yeah, that'll be great. So you'll drop that in the comments when we're done. So anyone who's interested, just wait like a few minutes. It'll be in the comments. Cool.
Yeah. So another mistake that I see people doing with Pinterest a lot is not being consistent, because the algorithm definitely
talking to me right now.
Consistency, yes. You have to be consistent. So a lot of people will put out new blogs or whatever, and they'll just go and like dump a ton of pins and then like walk away for a week or a month or something and then go back and do more. Doesn't really work.
Doesn't sound familiar. Not at all.
So you definitely want to be pinning daily if you can. And there are some programs out there that can help. I know that Tailwind is a partner with Pinterest, so that's a really, really good one to use. And that can help you be consistent. Pinterest also has where they can schedule on the native platform now. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, when you go into Pinterest.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, it only will go up to 2 weeks at this point. But if you go into where you create a pin, instead of clicking on publish immediately, down at the bottom, there is a little button that says publish at a later date. And so you can schedule that up to 2 weeks in advance. So you can have those scheduled out. So if you don't want to pay for Tailwind, you can do it that way. But Tailwind is good because it does help you, like you can do interval scheduling, so you can put multiple pins onto different boards. And it lets you know when you're not within Pinterest best practices, and will help you know that, yeah, that's a no-no, let's schedule them further apart, or things like that. So that's really helpful.
That's really helpful. I think I have a Tailwind account.
For those of you that
had
one,
I really, like I said, I've been really neglecting Pinterest, but I'm really excited to hear that there's a scheduling feature too, because I think that's one of the things people like it's a bit of a pain, like if you're going to have to like go in and post things all the time, but if you could schedule them, even if it is just 2 weeks, like that could be a game changer for a lot of us. That's really cool.
Yeah, that way you don't have to pay for Tailwind. Yeah, definitely. Another mistake that people make a lot is not thinking about the audience or the customer, right? Because like I said, Pinterest is a different platform. They go there for a different reason, but we have to make sure that we are letting them know that the thing that we have, the blog post, the freebie, the service that we offer, whatever it is, it will help address a pain point that that customer has. So like that's super, super important, because they're going to be more interested and they're going to click on it if they know that what you have can help them, because that's what they're there for. So you want to make sure that your pins relay that information and let them know that they can help you. So
that would be like I suppose the aesthetic of the pin, the text that you've put on the pin, the keywords, all of that. Is that like everything?
Yeah, in the description is a great place. Make sure that you have your keywords in there so that they can find it. Make sure that if you're using, you should use some taglines, some descriptors. So like, for me, I'm a homeschool mom with multiple kids. So like, if I just see a pin that says how to have a clean house, well, obviously it's not that hard to have a clean house. But if I see a pin that says how to have a clean house with multiple kids and homeschooling all day, like, oh, that really speaks to me, because I know that they know where I'm coming from, so I'm going to click on that pin more than the other pin that just says how to have a clean house, because I know it's speaking directly to me. So you want to speak directly to your audience for sure.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. So another one is that a lot of people aren't aware of all of the different types of pins Pinterest has now. Are you aware that they have new pin types?
I mean, I know some of the types, but I'm pretty sure I know all of them. So like, well, I guess that makes me ask you, like, firstly, what are those types?
Yeah.
And then also like why is it, I guess, important to know that there's different types? Like, is the mistake, I guess what I'm asking, is the mistake that people are just always pinning like one type of pin? Or kind of like, can you tell us a bit more about all of that?
Yeah, so there are four different types. There are static pins, which is just the regular pins. They can be just pictures, or they can be the pictures with the text overlay. That's just a static pin, right? And then they came out a little while ago with video pins. So video pins are ones that move. You can just have little animations in there, or you can actually have a video. Those are all considered video pins, something that moves, right? And it catches people's attention. So that's why video pins are great, because they do catch people's attention. But not only that, Pinterest is pushing video pins. So like your video pin that is just one of your static pins that you added some movement on, it's going to get more traction and impressions than just your static pin, right? But you don't have to just do video pins, because with your account getting a push from Pinterest to get more impressions, it's going to pull up your static pins as well. So that's why using a variety of formats is so good, because Pinterest does like the new things that they've come up with. And so they want to push those, and then it just kind of pulls the rest of your account up as well. So your static pins will be more accessible to other people as well. So the other type is story pins. Now, I'm very, very sad because I don't even have story pins on my own account right now.
Really?
And it makes me very frustrated. So if you don't have story pins yet, you can actually request them. And I've been requesting them like multiple times a day, but we'll see. Hopefully I'll get them soon. Like some of my client accounts have them already, but like, I don't know, it's crazy. But anyway, so I do have a link to where you can request story pins if you don't have them in my notes that I'm going to link to in a little bit as well. But story pins are insanely huge right now, because they're just pushing out story pins. And story pins are where you have like a pin, and then you have multiple pins behind it, and people can just swipe to go to the next one.
Kind of like Instagram carousel posts.
Yeah. And they actually have carousel pins, and I'm not sure if it's just carousel pins are now renamed story pins or what, because I haven't been able to play around with it yet a lot. But they do have something called carousel pins as well, but I'm not sure if that's going out and story pins are in, or if it's a separate type of pin, because they seem very similar to me.
With those, I mean, like you said, you're still waiting to get them on your account, but like would those then, they would all link back to the same content, assuming, or?
Well, that's actually something that a lot of creators are very disgruntled about, is story pins. You cannot click on them and go to your website. It's very frustrating. But story pins do help get the rest of your content seen more, which will click back to your website. And also story pins, like the last slide of your pin, a lot of people have been like, follow me for more tips, or follow me to see more content like this, or whatever like that. So story pins have been known to increase your followers rate. So they're really good for that. But like I said, when you have more people seeing your story pins, it's going to bring the rest of your static pins to the forefront as well.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of people that are focusing on doing like one story pin a day, a new story pin, and they are seeing insane traction right now. And the views on their account and the click-throughs to their website from other pins have just skyrocketed. So if you have story pins, I really, really encourage you to take advantage of that.
I'm so curious if I have them. I probably don't, but like.
Well, if you click on if you go into your Pinterest account, and at the top, if you have a business Pinterest account, it'll say business and then create, and it'll be a drop down. If you see that it says create pin or create ad, then you don't have them. But if it also says create story pin, that's where it's at.
Okay. And if you don't have it, we want to be requesting it.
Yes. And I do have the link for the website you need to go to request that in the notes as well. So makes it really easy. All right. So another mistake that a lot of people make on Pinterest is like just mindlessly pinning, right? If you just go on Pinterest and you're just pinning a lot of third-party stuff, and you're like, oh, this is really popular, so I'm just going to save it. But if it doesn't have anything to do with your account, that doesn't help you. It's just like a vanity inflating of your numbers. It really doesn't help you. So you want to make sure that you are focusing on your audience and your customer, and making sure that you're giving them things that will help them on your account. And that's what's going to make Pinterest like you.
like, so if someone is using Pinterest for their business, but they're also using it because they're looking for new recipes or like, I don't know, like
Yeah,
house
like DIY in their
decoration
house or something.
ideas or something like so like they might be pinning those things as well, which have like nothing to do with their business, for example. So would it be better to pin those things to a secret board, or would it be better to just have a personal other account for that kind of thing?
Well, you can do it either way. That is a personal preference, because if you are having a secret board, that's fine. It doesn't affect anything, but it does show Pinterest that you're using your account like a real user. So Pinterest does like that, but you don't have to have those secret boards on there. You can just have a separate business account, which is what I've done. And then I'll go on there and just pin like a normal user things to my board that are relevant. So you can do both. If you are pinning something to a secret board, it actually doesn't help the person that you're pinning from, or that who the pin is made by. So it doesn't like give them credit because you're just pinning it to a secret board. So I personally don't really like doing that, because then they don't like, it doesn't help their numbers at all. So
I actually ended up creating a personal account as well, because what I found was obviously Pinterest is kind of like, checking out what kinds of things you're pinning. And if suddenly I went through a burst of like pinning a lot of recipes, I am not like a recipe blogger or anything, like anything to do with that. And then suddenly in my feed and things, everything that was being kind of suggested to me was like all like food stuff. And I mean, like when I was on that little week of looking for recipes, that was great. Like after that, I was like, oh my gosh, where's all my other stuff gone? So I took the view to just like keep it separate, because then on my personal, I can do whatever I want for my personal interest. And I don't really care as much, I think, what's coming up in the feed, because like I'm just using it for, for my enjoyment, or like looking for things that will help me on a personal level. So yeah, I guess for anyone who's like wondering about that, maybe it's just see what works for you and go from there. But I think that's a really good point about the secret boards not helping the other person. And I love that you said that, because like I think a lot of people approach all this kind of thing from the how's Pinterest going to help me, and what am I going to do to get more traffic for me? And I love that you pointed this out, because actually, like, we're all in this together, and we should really be also doing things that are helping other people. Like, why wouldn't you want to also help your fellow entrepreneurs and bloggers? Like, so I'm so happy you said that. And like, I'm glad to know as well that that not to do that, because like we want to help people. We don't want to. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, there are a lot of groups, and some of you are probably in them as well, where they have like a Pinterest day and like pin all of your pins, and then you go back and you're supposed to pin all of everyone else's pins on that thread, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily helpful, because then Pinterest is confused about what your account is about if you're just pinning all these random things, right? So
I think that's what happened to me with the recipes.
So what you want to do is you want to kind of stay focused. Like, so for me, I actually have a homeschool podcast as well. And so I have a Pinterest account for that. So what I do is when I'm going to pin third-party things, I will focus on things that have to do with homeschooling or that have to do with podcasting specifically. But you can go like one step away from that as well, because you want to think about your typical audience, right? So my audience would be a homeschool mom that has multiple kids and it's dealing with household stuff and things like that. So even if I don't talk about recipes on my podcast, I know that that's something that my audience deals with. So I do have recipe boards. I do have like home decoration boards. I do have like organizational things where I may or may not have talked about that on my podcast. It does. My audience deals with that. So if I'm focusing on things that my audience likes, I'm good. So you can have boards that go to something that maybe you don't have something to pin to from your blog, but it still relates. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I mean, it's all coming back to, like, with everything in business, it's coming back to who are your ideal
Yes.
readers, your ideal
Yes.
clients, really knowing them and knowing that, you know, they have more interest than just what you can,
Right.
like, you're covering in your business, but
Yeah.
it's knowing what those are and, like, getting to
Yeah.
really, really know them.
Yeah.
Really.
So if you are on one of those groups that do have the Pinterest things, what you can do is, like, you could create a secret board, but then it doesn't help them anyway, so there's no point. But if you can't pin it, like if it's something that's completely off the wall from what your audience is about, you can comment on that pin or leave a reaction on the pin. That does help boost the impressions and things. It doesn't affect your account because you're using it like a typical user. So that's good because you're interacting with other people, but you're not pinning it because you don't need that information for later. So that is a really good way to interact with other people's pins without saving it to a board that means nothing to your people.
That's a really good tip. That's really good. I've sometimes, like, seen a pin that, like, I really don't feel like I want to pin, but, like, maybe I'll just shove it onto that board over there.
Right.
That'll be okay. But, like, it's good to know that commenting or doing other kinds of engagement will also help them. So
Yeah. And
that's
you
really good.
interacting, like I said, commenting will boost your account because Pinterest knows, oh, you're using it like a real person. That's what we want. So they favor that a lot.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've talked about a bunch of mistakes, and you've also shared, like, so many tips on how to get around those things. Okay, so we're convinced. Pinterest is where it's at. What would you say are, like, your top tips for being successful on Pinterest? Like, what are the number one sort of tips we should be, like, if we're ready to go out there and start our account, or we've got an account, we want to revive it, like, what would you say to us?
So first of all, you want to take an inventory of all the different content that you have. So, like, do you have podcast episodes? Do you have blog posts? Do you have freebies? Because you definitely don't want to forget those. Do you have landing pages? Like, some people think, oh, I just have a website, but then, you know, you have all these different things and you may have forgotten about your freebies, your landing pages, your Etsy products, your Shopify products. Like, all of those things can be a separate pin. And you can create multiple pins for each one. And that's going to give you a ton of content that you can use and share with Pinterest. Pinterest loves new content. So even if your content has been on the platform, you've had it on your website for a while, but you haven't pinned it, Pinterest still loves it. Not as much as brand new content, but it does love anything that it hasn't seen before. So make sure you make a list of all the things that you can share.
Okay, so it's not just blog posts.
Right. Yeah. You can link to podcast episodes. You can link to YouTube videos. You can link to your Etsy shop pages, like all the things. If it lives online, you can link to it on Pinterest. The only thing that you have to be careful with affiliate marketing links. Like Amazon specifically does not allow you to link directly to a Pinterest pin, but you can create a pin for a page on your website that links to an Amazon page if you want to. So there are ways around it, but you just have to be careful with affiliate links.
Some email marketing providers are like that too. And so I always, like, advise people, like, rather have a blog post or something, and then in your email, you're just directing people over there to that page or that post.
Right.
That's where then they get the affiliate.
Well, then you can track it better as well too.
Yes, exactly.
So that's definitely a good thing. And then it's showing you how many views you've had on your website and things like that as well. So yeah, definitely that's the best way to go. So the second thing is considering your content marketing plan. You have to make sure that you have a well thought out plan. You have to know where your customer is going. You have to know what your sales funnel is. You have to know where you're sharing all these pieces and make sure where it's all going. So make sure you like just sit down and do like a brain dump of like all the things that you can market. And you have to think of Pinterest as a marketing platform and consider it and make plans for using it as such. That's huge. You also want to optimize your account. I've seen so many people that just have an account and they haven't optimized their boards, they haven't optimized their pins, they haven't optimized their name on Pinterest. You can actually optimize it. Your profile description. It's like there are just so many places. And on the pin itself, those are great places that you can make sure that you have keywords, that you make sure that you are reaching all those people. So those are like the top 5 places that you can put keywords on Pinterest. So in your profile name, your profile description, on the pin itself, like the text overlay, in the pin description, and also in the board description. That's huge, 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 the board description. So that's a big thing. Let's see. The next one is optimizing your existing content and share it to Pinterest. So your landing pages, your freebies, all these things, you have to make sure that it's ready for Pinterest because it's not Facebook, it's not Instagram. When people find you on Facebook and Instagram, they're probably going to follow you a while before they actually click and go to your website, right?
Yeah.
Before they're interested in finding anything about you. Well, with Pinterest, they're going to click and go to your website like upon first meeting you if they like your pin, right? And they know nothing about you. Right. They know nothing about you. And so a lot of people from Facebook, they will have this page that's just here, sign up and I'll send you the thing. You know, but like Pinterest, that's not going to work because all they saw was your text overlay, your pin description, and then they click it and go to this page where it just says sign up. And they're like, why would I sign up? I have no idea who you are. So you need to treat all of your landing pages as like a mini sales page. You have to like sell yourself and tell them why they should sign up for your freebie, what you're going to give to them. Tell them exactly what's in it for them because they just met you. You know, you have to make sure that you are very specific in what you're going to give them and what you can offer them.
I mean, that's such golden advice for like regardless, even if you decide you're never going to use Pinterest, like your landing pages, you do need to really optimize them. I suppose that's a whole other rabbit hole. But like, yeah, 100%. Like they are sales pages, even if the thing is free.
Yeah, and it's even more important for Pinterest because they don't know you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you know what your customer journey is. Like if your goal is to sell a product or to sell a service or something like that, maybe you're a coach or something like that, you have to make sure that you've mapped out, okay, I put my pin on Pinterest. If they click on it, they're going to go to this page. They're going to sign up for my freebie because I have a really great landing page that tells them all the information. They sign up for it. Now what? You know, they're not just going to buy your $1,500 course right off the bat. You need to nurture them. You have to know where they're going to go, right? And so like that's more than Pinterest, but what are you going to do with them once you get them from Pinterest? Because they're not just going to buy from you on day one. Even if you have a $20 product, you've got to sell them a little bit, you know, you've got to woo them.
Yeah, definitely.
So people on Pinterest, they're just in discovery mode. So you have to make sure that you're thinking about that. Like on Facebook, they're a little more warmed up because maybe they've been following you for a little while. Maybe they kind of know what you're like. Maybe they know, you know, how you relate to them in some way. And so they trust you a little bit. But Pinterest, they don't know you.
Yeah,
it's completely different.
I mean, I've discovered some amazing websites on Pinterest, but like when I first clicked, I had no idea.
Right. Yeah.
And there were times I can say I clicked on the pin because, you know, it seemed interesting. It was attractive. It kind of seemed to suggest it was going to take me to something that I'd be interested in. And I literally just clicked back away after that. Like, it's happened so many times. And I think it's partly because I'm just like greeted by like someone trying to sell me something or get me to sign up. I'm like, who are you? I don't know anything. Like, what's going on here?
Right. So, yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. You have to make sure
you don't just want someone to click the pin. You want them to stick around when they're on your website.
Right. So you have to make sure that you're utilizing that. If you just have a blog post there for them to read, they're going to be like, okay, I'm done. You have to make sure like you're putting some action for them to take so that they can learn about you, so that you can nurture them. If they loved your post, that's great. But like, now what? You have to tell them what to do. So like, that's actually the next step, is create action-driven content. You have to make sure you're telling them what's next. You know, oh, you loved this blog post? Sign up for my freebie that has something to do with this blog post, or sign up for my mailing list because I'll send you tips just like this one. Whatever it is, you have to make sure that you're telling them what to do next, not just go back to Pinterest, because that's what they'll do if you don't tell them to do something else.
Yeah, and even if they pin your pin, they might not remember you to like go back and find out more from you. So if you know me at all, you know how much I love email marketing. And like, the answer, guys, is like, get people on your mailing list.
Yes, it's so huge. And like, Pinterest is so great for that, because people like on Pinterest, the freebies are just overwhelming. So you want to have some sort of freebie that you can collect their email address. It's perfect for that. That's what people are looking for on Pinterest.
Yeah. And I think if you've got something good to offer, and the way you kind of present it, when people land, they've gone from the pin to your website, they will sign up. Sometimes I think there is a misconception, and now we are going into a bit more about email marketing here, but there is this sort of myth out there, people aren't going to just like sign up to like random lists. Sorry, but people do.
They do.
It's how you present your offer. I have signed up to so many things. I have no idea who the person is. I don't really know if they can help me, but like what they present to me on their landing page, or it's so appealing. It speaks to me, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't know this person, but I'm going to give them a chance because I think I'm going to like it. So so definitely like. And that's what a lot of your traffic, as you're saying, from Pinterest, they are just randos out there. They don't know who you are.
But I mean, again, but that's what makes Pinterest great, is that somebody who doesn't know you at all, they could totally find you. And then if you nurture them well through your email sequence, if you have a welcome series and they get to know you, they could become customers. So that's great.
Always exciting.
Yeah. So then the next tip I have is to make sure that you're consistent, because Pinterest is not going to put your content in front of those people if you're not consistent. So using Tailwind to help with that. I know. Sorry.
It's hard.
And you don't have to pin as much as a couple of years ago. People were saying you have to pin like 30 pins a day. You don't have to do that anymore. Pinterest has changed the algorithm, and I think it's in a good direction. A lot of people are seeing like massive drops right now because of the algorithm change, but Pinterest is trying to make the experience for the typical user on Pinterest better. So you just have to think about how to make that work for you. And pinning less is actually something that has come from that. So it's actually a good thing.
So I don't need 100 pins a day.
No, definitely not. You'll get marked as spam.
Good. Because you're right. Like a few years ago, that was all the thing. Like who could pin the most pins a day?
Right.
And I think that was really, really difficult, because let's face it, it's not just about pinning the pins. It's making the pins.
Yes.
Matching the right content. It's all the things. Right. So I'm so glad that. So like, in terms of time, like what kind of time dedication is Pinterest? Like, because like we're all busy. Do I need to be on Pinterest for like hours a day? Do I need to spend a whole day batching content for like the next 2-3 days? Like, what's the commitment here?
Well, it really depends on how much content you have. Okay, so let's say you have right now on your website, you have 100 pieces of content. Now that's a mix of blog posts, podcast episodes, Shopify pages, all the things, freebies, landing pages, all of it. Okay, let's say you have 100, so it's a nice, easy number. You do not have to post all of those in just 1 month. You know, maybe take 5 or 6 pages and focus on those for this month. Go to your Google Analytics and see what your top pages were for last month and maybe focus on those. Okay, so maybe take your top 5, and this is just estimating. This is just, throwing out some random numbers. You can play with it and figure out what is going to work for you. How much time do you have to commit, and then kind of figure out what you're going to do from there maybe. So I say take like the top 3 posts or the top 5 posts from last month and make all new pins for them. Make 4, 5 pins for each page, okay? And there are tips out there where you can create a template and then create a pin for each of those pages based on that one template. So they all look the same. Maybe you change out the picture that's behind it. Maybe change out the text that goes with each blog post. And you just change that out, and that's pretty quick. And you've got 5 pins done, or 6 pins, whatever. And then create
here.
Yes, templates make it so much easier. You can knock out quite a few pins very quickly. So focus on those 5 pages, make 3, 4, 5 pins, however much you have time for, new pins for those 5 or 6 posts. Then take a couple of, if you have new posts or some really old posts that you want to throw in there because you have more time, whatever, depending on how much content you produce each month, you obviously want to do the new ones and then throw in some old ones. Okay. Make the pins for those. And then you can, if you're using Tailwind, you can set them to go out to the most relevant boards. That's the thing, because you have to make sure that you have the right keywords. So if you're pinning your, I don't know, grandmother's famous breakfast casserole recipe and you're pinning it to home organization, that's going to do no good. It's actually going to hurt you. I know it's getting out there to Pinterest more, but it does not help because
bored as well, because people are like, why are you posting this here?
Yeah. But also it's like Pinterest now has no idea what that pin is about. It has to figure out what your pin is about. And you do that through the keywords, through where you pin it. And if people are pinning it to recipe boards, then it's gonna be like, oh, that's a recipe. If you have a picture of food behind it, it's gonna figure out easier that it's a food recipe because Pinterest actually can figure out what your pin is about based on the picture. And it can read the text overlay on your pin as well. So like the algorithm is really smart, but you have to let it have time to index it and put it in the proper places so that it can index it. So you can do your Pinterest marketing. You can do it in an hour a week if you want. If you have more time than that, you can give it more time. But if you are pinning, using Tailwind to do the interval pinning, if you are batching a lot of your pins and kind of using templates to just swap out pictures, swap out the text, maybe change the colors, spend less than 5 minutes per pin, then it's not going to take you super long. And you don't have to spend all day, every day on Pinterest.
That is music to my ears. Like an hour a week sounds really doable, particularly because like in the beginning you were saying how then those pins have that 3.5 month like life. So like it kind of seems like you're gonna get it back, like the benefit definitely is there. Like if you could just find that hour a week or whatever, and if you could find a bit more here and there, that would be amazing. Right. That is so good. So I guess really what we're saying here is I don't really have too many excuses left for not using Pinterest.
Hopefully Absolutely not. Like you do have to spend some time up front, maybe figuring out the program that you're going to use, if you're going to use Canva or PicMonkey. I personally love PicMonkey, but if you're not familiar with it, it's going to take you longer in the beginning to figure out how to make your pins. If you're not familiar with Tailwind, it is going to take you longer to figure out, okay, how do I schedule all these things? Which board should I schedule them to? And you have to make sure that your board descriptions are updated so that you get the most from each of those pins. So it's going to take you longer in the beginning, but once you've got it down and you're kind of in a rhythm and you put it in with, when you write a new blog post, it's just one of the things you do. It's going to become second nature. It's going to become old hat.
Okay. Mission accepted. Or challenge, really.
Yeah.
Tiffany, that is, I feel like I'm just gonna have to watch this replay like over and over, because I feel like you've shared so much amazing content. It's like unbelievable.
Good.
I know we've got a few questions and comments, and like we're definitely going to get to these, but really quickly before we do, where can people find out more about you? And like, I mean, you're just a wealth of information about Pinterest. So how can we continue the journey and learning with you?
Well, I actually have a Facebook group that I have created for getting tips for Pinterest strategy. And I can link to that in the comments as well. I have a link to that on my notes page that I'm going to put after our live as well. So you can join that Pinterest or the Facebook group about Pinterest if you want to. And I love helping people in there. So you can give me specific information about your account, and I can try to help guide you in that group. So that's always fun. But if this still seems really overwhelming, and I'm not trying to pitch or anything, but if you need extra help, I am a Pinterest strategist / Pinterest manager as well. So if you are interested in working with me more one-on-one in a business capacity, I do handle Pinterest accounts as well. And you can find that information at freedomconnectservices.com.
Amazing. Cool. Yeah, definitely, guys, please do check out Tiffany's website. Even if you're not ready to hire her or anything, like, please go there, show her some love, show her some support, because you've shared like just so much amazing stuff. So I'm just going to quickly take a look at our comments and questions and just see if there's anything we can cover now. But for anyone who is has a question afterwards watching the replay, drop them in the comments, because Tiffany and I will go back and take a look, tag us so that we're aware of what's going on, because Facebook doesn't always tell you when people put comments posts, and then we'll definitely get back to your questions then. So let's just see. So Sebastian says he struggles with Pinterest. It seems like it's very woman only. He says he posts regularly and high quality content that does get quite a bit of traffic, but not from Pinterest. And his posts are generally educational, value-based type content. What do you think about that? Like, so I guess the first part is like, is it really only for women? And then like maybe what do you think, what are some tips for Sebastian in terms of like, why is the traffic coming from elsewhere but not so much from Pinterest?
Well, let's see, for the women only thing, a large percentage of Pinterest users are women. That is true. It's around 75, 78% of Pinterest users are women. But I mean, on the bright side, that's 23 to 25% men. So that's not terrible. So the male user base is actually growing, because as when Pinterest first came out, it was geared only to women. So that is changing. And so, I mean, that's a bright side you can look forward to. But you also have to think about, like, if it is mainly women, do you have a way that you could, I mean, I don't know what your business is about, but there are even tool companies on Pinterest, and they do very well. Because they are able to capture those people, that few percentage of men, and get them onto their site. Or they do have pins and things that do target women. So when Father's Day is coming up, they're like, hey, your dad needs a new tool or your husband needs a new tool kind of thing. And so they are able to target that way. So you have to think about what your business is about and maybe look at some other businesses or blog posts that are in your niche and see what they're doing. Because I don't know if everyone knows this, but when you go to the Pinterest search bar, over on the right-hand side of the search bar, you can actually click down and change it to boards that you're searching or people that you're searching, or I think there's one other thing and I can't remember what it is right now. But if you're looking for a keyword that is specific to your niche and you change it to people, you'll see top people in your category and you can get some ideas from what they're doing. And that could definitely help you.
Amazing. Yeah. So Sebastian, if you have like more specific questions, if you maybe want to share what kind of business you're doing, maybe Tiffany can come back in and pop in a few more tips.
Yeah.
But like that, I think that's already the thing. I suppose my question is also like, if you're really not targeting women at all, then maybe that is more of a concern. But if your kind of ideal customer base could be women or women who know men,
right? Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. You have to think about your audience and who exactly they are on Pinterest, because if you sell things specifically for men, but they can be bought for their men by the wives or the daughters or, whatever, then that is who you need to target if that's the way you want to go. So you can do both and have pins that are specifically for men or have pins that are geared more toward women purchasing things. So you have to think about that customer journey again.
Yeah, it all goes back to that. It's like really knowing who you're trying to reach and doing everything you can to like optimize everything about Pinterest, from the pin to the everything.
To the landing page. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So we had another question. Is Pinterest more keyword driven than Google, which seems more content or solution driven?
Well, with the way Google has changed recently, like when you type a question into Google, it'll kind of try and pop up answers to your questions right there. So you don't have to go to another website. So they want to try and be just the place you go for your answers. So I guess the answer is yes, it is more keyword driven, because you don't typically type in a question in Pinterest, at least not too many people that I've spoken to. You kind of know that, okay, I'm struggling with keeping my house clean, so maybe home organization or cleaning tips or things like that.
Yeah.
So you're really focusing on, I mean, because when I go to Google, I normally type in a question, and so it's a lot different. And I feel like Pinterest is very content and solution driven as well, because you're going somewhere to solve a problem or to learn about something. So they're very similar, but Pinterest is somewhere you go to be taken away from that platform, which is different. I mean, Google is the same way too, because it gives you all these links to sites. And so they want you to go other places. But so it is very keyword driven. I don't know if it would be more so than Google. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we can say the same about things like YouTube as well. Like you go to YouTube I mean, obviously sometimes people just go for the cat videos, but like a lot of times you're going there because you're looking for something specific. It's not going to direct you away like Pinterest does to like other sites, but like you're going there again. I think, I mean, I would say like wherever you're looking to get your content out there, it's all about helping people, helping your people. And I think that, I mean, I would say like, I think that's where our focus should be. Like the keywords, like definitely part of that. But first you need to know what problem you're solving, who you're helping. And if you can nail that, I think you'll have a much easier time on all the platforms, really.
Yeah. And, that's a huge shift from when blogging first came out, people were just writing about their lives and, you know, telling what they had for lunch or whatever. And that's not what people want to read nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
that's not what blogging is for anymore. You have to find out who your audience is and who will relate to you, and then give value to that person. And so on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Instagram, it all is about your customer. If you're focusing on you, you're probably not going to do very well. But if you're focusing on what you can do for other people, then they're more likely to buy from you or listen to you and read your blog posts and things like that.
That is sage advice.
Yeah.
And on that note, just want to wrap things up and say, Tiffany, this has been amazing. It's been such an honor and pleasure chatting with you. I've learned tons about it, and I definitely feel motivated to make it a bigger focus in my strategy. So thank you so much for like sharing so much valuable information. We're definitely going to link to the things, your links below, your Facebook group, your website, and the handout or the notes page. So we're definitely going to link those. But yeah, thank you to everyone for joining in and watching, those who commented and left questions. If you've got more questions, please just drop them in the comments, and we will hopefully be able to get to them as soon as we can. Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I hope to talk to you again soon. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.